So AUKO Designs is a 3D design solutions company that specializes in computer-aided software and manufacturing technologies to bring all types of dreams and ideas to life. What we focus on is 3D design services, 3D design products, and 3D design education. With AUKO Designs, we then have AUKO Puzzles, which is the product production side of AUKO Designs, the educational side. With AUKO Puzzles focuses on the designing, the research, and the manufacturing of educational enhancement tools to enhance and improve the skills and knowledge transfer between facilitator, teacher, and student. So essentially, we bring a tangible transfer of information. So I guess we still within a digital space where we use computers to tap on screens to transfer knowledge. But now we're gonna then introduce an element where we use actual products, like for example tools like toys or tools like puzzles, to transfer knowledge, to explain these different theories, to explain different informations or rather different concepts. We have a range of different AUKO puzzles. We've got 7 different products that we have in our AUKO range. We've got the African continent puzzle. The African puzzle is essentially a cutout of the African continent and the different countries within the African continent. And on the base of each of that, you see the country's name. And this also just gives a different touch or different flair or different experience to learning about history and geography. We have the X and O's. The X and O's actually it's also known as tic-tac-toe. I don't know if you remember that game where you'd have to cancel each other using X's and O's. Yeah, the hashtag sign. That's the one. So essentially, it works the same way, but instead of using a pen and paper, we're using this block box that has 9 different cubes, and on both sides of each cube has the X's and O's, and then you use these X's and O's and these cubes to kind of challenge each other and see who wins. It helps with analytical thinking, problem solving. Let's say X's and O's also helps with just thinking outside of the box, and also double entendre on the box because it's in the box. So yeah. So I guess it looks at those little elements as well of the small little things that we often overlook within education, where being able to like spatial orientation, for example, or analytical problem solving, like being able to put things together, making things make sense. We often overlook these things, and it's very important for especially for kids wanting to teach your kids these types of technologies or these types of advanced programs that we're trying to introduce to them. It's very good to start from an early age where we introduce a much more practical, much more hands-on, tangible way of learning. It improves it through the means of you give a physical, tangible result at the end of the program, so you're able to then teach someone something practically from a computer standpoint. They design something on the computer, and then they're able to 3D print it, or they're able to laser cut it, or they're able to cast it, and they're able to physically have something that they've then learned how they've learned the manufacturing, they've learned the material, and they've learned how it's made, and then they can physically touch it. And also at the same time, having 3D within the skills transfer, it's easier to interact with something that's tangible. Human beings are much more engaged with things that they can feel and touch and smell, like our feelings. And when our senses are enhanced through learning, that's where we actually learn stuff, and that's normally done through things that you can touch and feel with your hands. It's very impactful, so people learn a lot easier and faster, and people actually find it fun to learn, especially with the different puzzles and the different the different activities that come with it as well. So it's not just a thing where you have to read an activity then do it, but now you can actually you can read it and then you can physically make that activity come to life and physically see it come to fruition. Like obviously that's when you look at different things like mathematical shapes and geometry as well. When you learn about geometry, the traditional way of learning geometry is just on a pen and paper, then you draw and then use a ruler and you use your protractors and different mathematical tools. But then now when you start bringing educational enhancement tools like different stuff that can speak about the same theories that they're learning on 2D platform, but it's more 3D. So they're learning about the theory of Pythagoras, but in a much more 3D way, where they can actually see the triangle and actually see where the hypotenuse is and understand that. So that adds that element of learn to play. Because human beings innately learn the world and learn in how to interact with the environment through touch and feel. So immersing education and immersing 3D design is a very effective way of teaching some people how things are made, or how the world works, especially now in the 21st century. Yeah, so with all the tech we have, yeah. What I studied at university and the experience that I've learned that there are many ways of getting things done. As AUKO Designs, I've tapped into a lot of different industries within my journey. So I've tapped into mining, I've tapped into the architecture, the agricultural space, I've tapped into the smart devices. So then what I do, I'll be able to design a concept based off a problem, of course, problem statement. And I design a concept, and then I know that, okay, this particular concept will need the expertise of someone who actually is a jewelry designer by qualification or by trade, who has experience. As an industrial designer, have conceptualized a solution based off the problem statement, based off the research I've gotten from the potential end user, right? Or the actual end user as well. We get feedback, we design, and then we source the experts who actually are, who actually do this, who actually have been doing this longer than I have, and who are actually experts at it. We are able to then teach the people how to actually do that as well, how to design the concept, how to source the actual skills they need to make this concept come to life and make it as feasible and as realistic as possible. Like collaboration is one of the biggest things that can actually change a lot of people's lives. It's because, for example, case in point, can collaborate, have an easy collaboration with waste pickers, which is something that we actually have doing in the background as well, with some of the partnerships that we are part of. But we have collaborations with waste pickers where they collect all types of collect cans, and then we melt these cans and we cast them and create like garden tools, for example. And then from that, there's an ecosystem that's created where we sell these garden tools that then get used in gardens and schools. And these schools donate these cans to the waste pickers, and we make the garden tools, and the school then gets these garden tools to work into to then reuse within the school garden. And then this ecosystem is then continued. And within that garden as well, the same tools that have been used from the trash, from the waste, are then used to plant crops, which are then sold in the community, and the money then circulates, and then there's an economy that grows, all from collaboration. So everybody gets to get a particular piece of this puzzle, or of this pie rather, and it's and everybody, just as I've mentioned earlier, if you're expert in one thing, you kind of stick in within that lane that you're good at, and you use that your expertise and your experience to then add into the totality of the goal for the community. So yeah, I think the collaboration is the key. Collaboration will change everything. That's the power of collaboration, and it's worked also within my meetings and the partnerships that I've had, because you can always find work when you collaborate with people. You can always find opportunities when you collaborate with people, and your ideas always expand as well. You always have more ideas when you collaborate with people, because ultimately at the end of the day, people are what you want to sell your products to. So the unique advantages with us is that we customize and design everything from concept right through to implementation, right through to end user. So ultimately what that means is that we have the skill sets and the expertise to literally bring any type of concept that you want to conceptualize or improve. We're unique in that way. Our unique value proposition is that then we have real hand-ground experience with the people on the ground, with the potential salespeople from different walks of life, by the way. It's not just people from the townships, but also people from corporates as well. So we've worked with different spaces, we've worked with different organizations, mines, corporates. So we've tapped into different, so we're unique in that way, because we're very flexible, and we have a range of different expertise, and all these expertise they are all solely based off, proudly South African or African narratives and stories. So I think that's the unique value proposition. Let me say the first game that we re-engineered to cater for our African perspective was the tangrams. And it's funny because the lady I partnered with, her name is Buhle. She owns a company called Ubambo Mathematics, and she's a mathematician and she's a teacher. And she teaches kids mathematics, and she has after-school lessons where she teaches kids. So I started doing this with Buhle, and then we started designing all types of puzzles, and then we started off with the tangrams. It came from China as well. It's a Chinese mathematics game that they use as well. It's very, very old, by the way. But then we've taken it, and I took that as a first product, and then I started seeing, okay, this works. Started working with more teachers, started working with more people that professionals within the educational space, and I started developing. And the same lady Buhle then advised, we started going into geography, and then we started going into designing with the African continent. And then we had the South African continent, and we started looking at how do we then familiarize our kids and ourselves with the African continent. How do we then evolve the map? We have an old school map where it's on the wall, and how do we make that tangible? How do we make that interactive? How do you then take this and then change a person's perspective when they look at the country? They look at Congo, for example. You take the piece of Congo, which is a puzzle piece, and you actually see its size, its scale in relation to the other countries. Perspective opens up. This is the best way to also learn about the world around you as well. When I design these games and puzzles, I don't design them off my own knowledge or my own thinking. Most of it comes from a creative sense, of course, but then there's a lot of quantitative and qualitative research that goes into this as well, a lot of desktop research. By quantitative and qualitative research, I mean I physically speak to teachers, and I physically speak to kids, and I physically have kids engage with the puzzles I make. And then from the feedback I get, I then improve the design. So it's not something I just make up from my head. It's something that I genuinely get from real world experience. I find something that exists, and I see, okay, this exists in China, it works in China. How can we then take this concept and then make it work in a South African context? That's where your quantitative and your qualitative research comes in. That's where you go on the ground, and then you create a prototype similar to the concept that you find in China, and then you go on the ground and you start making these things. We've got what we call the AUKO babies, one of my favorite products that I have. That's like this character, this little white baby that wears earphones, dances and stuff that babies love, right? It's a cartoon character, it's Coco Melon. So what I did, I was like, okay, cool. I'm doing educational toys, I'm working with kiddies, and then also it's also just based off my quantitative and qualitative research. When I go out into the field and I start asking people questions, one of the feedbacks I got was, why don't you add a cartoon character to your puzzle? I took the Coco Melon image, and then I took it onto Copilot, right? And after that, I gave Copilot a prompt, and I told Copilot, Africanize this child and make this child have the same character design, same features, same eyes, but the only difference is that you're gonna make them black and you're gonna make them African. You're gonna add some African patterns. Yeah. We're looking to get equipment. We're looking to get a space to have our own factory, our own workshop, our own educational facilities where we can teach people industrial design and 3D design and manufacturing, where we can manufacture our products locally and our prototypes locally as well, and a space where we can then have a museum of design. Essentially, I want to create a museum of design where we have all types of designs that we've made and other designers in South Africa, in Africa, have as a showcase, where we have a space where clients and all types of corporates can come and see where the talent is, like a hub of sorts, right? So that's a dream I actually want to build. And we have these hubs all over we have them in different designated areas in the continent. My focus is just creating the most innovative products, getting the best designers, the best innovators, the best specialists around to create the best products, because I'm good at that.